look at the sorts of people that voted for Leave and the sorts of places that voted for Leave, they look very similar in Wales as they do in England. And some people have talked about, in England particularly, what's known as the left behind voters and the left behind communities. Places, often small towns, impoverished coastal communities, that have seen the benefits of globalisation go to other, maybe more cosmopolitan places, places that are struggling. And we have a great many of those communities in Wales, particularly in South Wales.
So one of the notable things about the Welsh case is that real distinction between the political elite and the public when it came to the vote within Wales. So in the run-up to the referendum, it was very, very clear that the majority of the political elite within Wales, the majority of the assembly members and also sectoral organisations were very much in favour of the UK remaining within the European Union. And then, of course, it came to the vote itself, and the Welsh public voted to leave the European Union.
South Wales valleys are areas that have been solidly Labour for almost a century, and the Labour Party in Wales was pretty much unanimous in recommending a Remain vote. South Wales valleys have also been recipients of large amounts of EU funding in recent years, yet all of them voted for Leave. Most of the valleys by quite large margins, so trying to understand why these traditional Labour supporting voters in traditional Labour supporting areas went so heavily against the recommendation of their party, as well as against their own apparent self-interest in voting for Leave in the referendum last year.
So in terms of support, finding support for Brexit or for leaving the EU among young people living in Wales, we did qualitative interviews with 23 young people, and 7 of them supported leaving the EU, which is broadly representative of the proportion that did support leaving the EU on the 23rd of June last year. And we talked to them about why, and a lot of the reasons they gave echoed the rhetoric surrounding the Leave campaign in the run-up to the EU referendum.
What we found in the focus group work in particular is, well, first of all, very little sign of Leave voters from last year changing their minds. We found that immigration was one of the major concerns, and many of these voters articulated a specifically working class sort of understanding of why immigration might be problematic, feeling that it was making the labour market much more competitive, driving down wages, working to the benefit of employers rather than ordinary workers. We also found very strong scepticism about the effectiveness of EU spending in the valleys, a feeling that things like EU structural funds had been largely wasted, spent on vanity projects, things that, as somebody put it, were done to the communities in the valleys, not with them. And sort of the final major thing that we found is a strong sense amongst many of these Leave voters, at least, that some short-term difficulties with Brexit, some short-term costs had already been priced into their decision. They were expecting this, but they still thought that in the long term Brexit would be worth it.
But in reality is, you have to understand why they voted to leave, because I think in a way for them it was voting against the establishment and whether that actually worked. And if you're in dire straits and nothing seems to be improving, no matter how much investment's being made because there's no job being created or whatever because of the current market, then you are going to kick against the establishment. And I think actually what people should realise is that the vote was more about a kick in the teeth for the establishment than necessarily Europe. I think it was the fact is that they are, if you are in a bad state, why would you vote for the same when someone's saying to you, actually, do you know what, if you jump off the edge of this cliff, at the bottom is a big trampoline and you're going to bounce back, you've got nothing to lose.
Interestingly, we found that those young people who wanted to leave the EU felt that there would be a detrimental impact upon themselves in the short term. Things like difficulties in travelling, difficulty studying abroad, restrictions on free movement for them. They did feel like that was going to impact upon them negatively, but that this was more of a bump in the road on the way to a much better Britain for everyone. So they had this kind of ideological long-term view around the benefits of Brexit, Whereas the young people we talked to who supported remaining had very similar issues and felt like they were going to be impacted in very similar ways in terms of negative impact. But they saw that as a long-term thing, so the travel, the study and the work abroad, with the kind of resounding problems that young people foresaw. But for the leavers, this was short-term, and for the remainers, it was long-term. And that was quite key, actually. It was kind of deeply rooted ideology behind the leave preference.